The Sen City Classic tournament happened this past weekend, showcasing 4 North American VCT teams, showcasing their brand new rosters that they will be heading into 2025 with. So while this was a small tournament and the results should be taken with a grain of salt, it was a fun way to showcase these new rosters, and we're here to talk about what implications the results might have for the next VCT season. So this is the board we have today. We have all 4 teams on the board and their placements. We also have player stats from one player of each team down below, but we're going to start with talking about the individual teams. Starting with the winners of the entire tournament, Energy showcased their new roster and they looked dangerous. They ended up going undefeated this entire tournament, and their 2 new additions in Verno and Mata showcased some very high skill. This was the grand final matchup between them and Sentinels, and Energy really had their way with Sentinels in this one, winning the first map of Bind 13-4. Things didn't get much better for Sentinels on map 2, as Energy ended up beating them 13-5 on that one, so they only got 1 extra round. So just a dominating grand final from Energy, having some very good performances by Som and FNS. Overall, throughout this match, you can see that Mata had 41 kills, playing both Raze and Neon, showing that he can be flexible on that duelist role. Som doing well for himself on the smokes role, and FNS not being at the bottom of the leaderboard. That's pretty new for him. Narrate, the only player with a positive scoreline on Sentinels. Bank definitely had a bit of a rough game here, getting 21 kills, but he doesn't need to be the one getting kills. Zekin had a pretty rough game for himself, only 16 kills for him. So I'm not going to be going through every single match that happened in this tournament. Instead, I want to look at some of the map pools that we saw throughout the tournament. Energy, being undefeated, have a very good map pool in this tournament. Split, they went 2-0 on. Their attack win percentage was 71 and defense was 69, 2 very high numbers. Keep in mind, since these are a very small amount of matches being accounted for these stats, that some of them are going to be quite high. We probably wouldn't see this kind of stat line throughout more games played. But anyway, Energy were very good on Haven as well. 3-0 record in the tournament. Attack win percentage was 63 and defense was 71. So a very solid tournament overall from Energy, and their new addition, Verno, ended up being the MVP of basically the entire tournament. Having the best rating throughout the tournament of 1.25, he had 174 kills, 127 deaths, 59 assists for KD ratio of 1.37. In these matches, he played Cypher, Sova, as well as Gecko. So Verno off to a fantastic start. He looks absolutely cracked on this team. Him and Mata seem to be working very well together. FNS, I think, is a great leader for these young players to come up in a tier 1 environment. Plus, Som was really clicking at this tournament, and Ethan was doing well for himself too. So a lot of things to like about this Energy team so far. Seems like bringing in Bonkar as a coach and adding these new hungry young players definitely seems like the right move, and a very good way to actually manage your roster instead of waiting 3 or so months until you finally get the 2 players that you want and then having no time to practice like they did last year. So Energy learning from their mistakes so far, at least. We will see how far this goes. I'm not going to call this roster the best roster in the Americas or North America yet. I am still going to wait a bit longer until how I truly feel about each roster. But Energy off to a very good start. I'm really liking what I'm seeing. Moving on, we have Sentinels, who are also showcasing their 2 new players for the first time, and they definitely did well at this tournament, but definitely a bit of concerning things here and there. They did have some pretty good spots in this tournament, though. They did go 2-1 during the group stage, only losing to Energy, and they did beat Evil Geniuses pretty decisively to be able to make it to the grand final, which, you know, definitely a good thing to make it to the grand final of your own tournament. Looking at their match against Evil Geniuses, Zekin had a pretty solid game, getting 52 kills on the Neon. The first map was a very decisive victory for Sentinels, 13-2. EG would bounce back and have a pretty solid map too, but losing eventually in overtime. Zekin yet again top fragging for the team. Zelsus doing well for himself too, 25 kills on the KO. Bang showcasing he was a good pickup as well, 23 kills. Narrate at the bottom with the -4 and 17 kills, but not too big of a deal when the team ended up winning. The overall stat line, we can see Narrate had a -10 overall throughout the match, playing Sentinel, playing both Cypher and Killjoy, and John QT ended up getting 30 kills, going +12 on the match while playing Fade. So an interesting role construction for Sentinels. I would have expected Narrate to be the one mainly on Initiator, and then have John QT on the Sentinel, because that was kind of the expectation. You bring in Narrate, he's the new Initiator player. Zelsus can also play it too, but Zelsus primarily flex. And you have John QT on the Sentinel, which he was very successful on. Maybe this kind of mid-season and end of the season, maybe John QT Wasn't as good as what he looked like in Madrid, but he was still quite good. But now we're seeing Narrate pick up that Sentinel role, and so far it hasn't really worked out, at least perfectly. Narrate is a very talented player, and I'm sure he'll figure it out. This tournament wasn't the best showcase of his skills, but it's not like he was playing bad or anything. Looking at two maps for Sentinels, Pearl, they had a 3-0 record, going perfect on it. Attack win percentage was 72, defense was 47, so kind of surprising that their defense win percentage is that low and their attack win percentage was that high, but I guess that's why the attack is so high. On Sunset, a map that Sentinels in the past has been pretty good at traditionally, they went 2-1 on it during this tournament. Attack was 61% and defense was 68. So it's pretty solid numbers overall for the map pool, but how did one of their new additions do? Looking at Bank, he had a pretty solid tournament for himself, a rating of 1.16. He had 181 kills, 153 deaths, 89 assists for key ratio of 1.18, playing two characters, two smokes, Astra and Omen. So pretty good showcase for Bang overall, looking like he might end up being the best addition for Sentinels in the offseason. A lot of people excited about Narrate. Narrate did play well, his stat line overall is pretty solid, but Bang was just that little bit better, and showing that as a smokes replacement for 10s, he was probably the best pickup that they could have had. We'll see how far Sentinels can go during the rest of the offseason as well as into the next season. I think there's a lot to like about this roster. That John QT and Narrate role confliction might happen. I don't know if I particularly want John QT to stay on the initiator role. I think he should go back to Sentinel, and I think that Narrate should probably be that main initiator player. But we will see. Kaplan knows best, and I hope this roster does pretty well. Moving on, we have Evil Geniuses showcasing a temporary roster for this tournament. Potter saying that this is the roster that they want to head into the next season with, but is temporary because of things out of her control. So this was this roster's dry run. So how did they end up doing? Well, they did end up surprising people by getting third in the entire tournament, making it to the top 3, beating C9. But the big thing that a lot of people were focusing on was Ye. Ye has not played in Tier 1 Valorant since about midway through this season, and he has made his way back to North America, and he has found a home on this Evil Geniuses roster. So how did he do overall? For this video, I've been starting with talking about the teams overall, but I'll start the Evil Geniuses section by just talking about Ye. His stat line, pretty solid overall. He had a rating of exactly 1 according to VLR, 175 kills, 170 deaths, 35 assists for key to ratio of just above 1.03, and he was mainly playing Sentinel with Vise and Cypher. I really like his Vise, honestly, I think is a good fit, but he also played a little bit of smokes in Astra. I don't know how many times we're going to see Ye on smokes throughout the next season, but I think the Sentinel role is a pretty good fit for him. I know that a lot of people are clamoring for him to play Chamber again, and listen, I would love to relive the days of Ye being the #1 player in the world by just absolutely dominating everybody by playing Chamber, but I think there are some in the community that at this point are overrating Chamber's placement in the meta. Yes, he did get buffed. I don't think that buff is enough to make him anywhere near his 2022 form. Remember, this guy was just absolutely breaking the game. Just to go on a bit of a side tangent, I know a lot of people want to nerf Neon. I think Neon does deserve a little bit of nerfs, but by saying that she is game-breaking and that she's worse than Chamber in 2022, that is a wild take. 2022 was a fun year for the VCT, but in terms of overall metas, I think it was one of the worst that Valorant has ever seen. Chamber was literally just breaking the whole game. He was making it so not fun, and was just to sit in a corner and just... Oh, that's fun. Yeah, no, that's more broken than a girl that can run fast. Side tangent over. I don't think Ye needs to play Chamber again to be successful. I think Potter helping him get his confidence back, I think this is going to do wonders for him. I think this team is a perfect fit for Ye. I think the coach is a perfect fit for Ye, and I think he needs to just play as a more well-rounded player. Yes, on Bleed, we saw him on roles that maybe weren't the best for him, that maybe he wasn't the most comfortable on, but I think as an overall Sentinel player, I think that's a role that he can find himself a lot of success on. And he looked pretty good while doing it in this tournament, and when you have these other Sentinels that are better than Chamber, I think that's more valuable than just having another Chamber one trick. I think it's better if Ye diversifies his character pool in a good way, a la Tens moving on to Omen. I think that would do wonders for him, and seeing him play a couple different characters during this tournament, I think he's going to be a good Sentinel player for EG if that's what they stick him on, which I assume is going to be the case. Alright, looking at EG as a whole, on Abyss, they had a 2-1 record on it, so pretty solid on that map. Attack win percentage was 43, so not where you want it to be. but defense was 61. Split wasn't great for them. They had a 0-2 record, attack was 53, and defense was 21. So they had a couple maps where they were blown out on, especially during that Sentinels, pre-grand final. I don't know if it's called winners final. They did have some bad maps throughout the tournament, but overall the map pool doesn't look terrible for EG right now. Plus, this is the first one of this roster. Take these map pools with a massive grain of salt, but I just wanted to look at some quick stats. I know Sim didn't have a good tournament. In fact, statistically, he was the worst in the entire tournament, despite his team doing pretty decent. That is unfortunate, and I hope that doesn't cost Sim a spot on this roster for the VCT 2025 season, because I think he is better than that. I think it's just, nerves, dry run. You're not really used to this roster yet. I think it's fine that he didn't have a great tournament, and I think he deserves at least more of a chance than this, but we will see what EG does. I think this EG roster is going to be able to play spoiler to some pretty good teams next season. I do have some faith in this new EG roster. We will see what they can do. All right, talking about our last team, we have C9, and there's not much to say about C9 because they did not do very well. Losing every single match they played, they did take 2 maps throughout the entire tournament, one from Energy and one from Evil Geniuses. Against Energy, they won Bind 13-6, and on Abyss, they won 13-5 against EG, which was their 1-0 record on Abyss. They had an attack win percentage of 58, defense was 100%. Wow, how insane. What a crazy number. It's just one match. Don't take it too seriously. However, their Haven was downright terrible. 0-2 on that map. 33% on attack. 30% win rate on defense. So again, very small sample size for this team, but C9, a team that typically does well in tournaments that don't really matter all that much, definitely not a good showcase for your new roster. This is the first time we're seeing Rossi and Vic play on this roster. Vic was in the Red Bull Homeground qualifying tournament, but that was with Mitch on the roster. This is a new proper showcase of this. So the early returns are not great, but again, you can just wash this one away. It's an off-season tournament, doesn't matter, and they can focus on the proper Red Bull Homeground tournament coming up soon. C9's other new addition in Rossi didn't have a great tournament for himself. Rating of 0.86, 98 kills, 120 deaths, 43 assists for key to ratio of 0.82. Playing Sova and Viper throughout the tournament. Not the worst showcase ever, but not where you want the stats to be. Again, you can wipe this one away. It really doesn't matter. It's just a fun little off-season tournament, but C9 definitely showing what I'm kind of expecting them to be, which is just a mediocre team with some talent. Oxy is an amazing player. I'm excited to see what Vic does. I think there are some things to like about C9, but they did not show up here. So that is everything that we have to talk about in the Sen City Classic tournament. My light just went out, but we're about to end, so I'm not going to fix it. Let me know what you thought of this tournament in the comment section below. What do you think the implications are for these teams? Please click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.